Hey guys, and welcome to the channel. I have with me Amy Lundy, and of course, we've had her on a couple of times, and she has gratefully come on to talk about the clay court swing and, of course, preview Roland Garros as well. Amy, how you doing?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me.
No problem at all. No worries at all. Um, let's get into this straight away then, because there's a lot to cover, and of course, Roland Garros is only around the corner, but we've had a really action-packed clay court swing. So I guess we can start with the ATP Tour first, and Novak Djokovic, who is, I guess, the player of the moment at the moment after beating Stefanos Tsitsipas in a pretty comprehensive fashion in Rome. I know you did an article on it as well, talking about his, I guess, clay court, not just his clay court swing, but his clay court performances since the start of his career, and maybe questioning as to whether he's potentially now the second best clay courter. A lot of discussions around him versus Bjorn Borg as well. He's continually, I guess, staking a claim for that number two spot, and I think the Rome victory, he racked up his 1,000th win, won Rome for I think it was a sixth time as well. He just continues to kind of break records, as I guess the big three or big two at the moment anyway, continually do. But have you been surprised with how his clay court swing has gone? I think it's been, in my opinion anyway, it's been a pretty almost perfect clay court swing leading up to Roland Garros to almost peak for it.
Yeah, he is an incremental guy. He makes sure that he doesn't output too much effort and energy and too long on the court in the early stages of the clay court season. And just incrementally, he gets more and more and more and more. And even in the Serbia Open, he made the final, but he lost to Rublev. So he just got better and better and better. And sure enough, he is peaking. No, it doesn't surprise me. That's kind of his modus operandi. And I really do believe that he's one of the best clay court players ever, and that with just a few more accolades or accomplishments on clay, then he could position himself as second to Nadal. But just to get it out there, Nadal is so far and away the best clay court player ever that nobody is ever going to catch him, at least not in our lifetime.
Yeah, yeah. Unless somehow Carlos Alcaraz becomes an incredible player, wins everything for the next for like 4 or 5 years. But yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I mean, it'll be really, really surprising in our lifetimes to see anyone get anywhere close to that. But you never know. I guess records are to be broken. But it would be astounding if it happened. But yeah, I mean, Novak Djokovic, obviously, as you said, I think it's typical Novak really to just incrementally build his way up until the Grand Slams, and we've seen him do it so well over the last couple of years. Of course, last year as well, won 3 out of the 4 slams, and then he barely played in any other tournaments, and he just manages himself so well. And it's funny because after the Belgrade Open, he was talking about, I'm really, wasn't feeling well, wasn't feeling good. He got bageled obviously by Rublev in the deciding set, and he was talking and saying, I was gassing out. My energy was really low. Don't know what to do, but my aim is to peak for Roland Garros, and everyone's getting really worried. And I was just thinking, like, he hasn't played a lot of tennis. I think he said that he had some type of illness anyway beforehand, and he was
Hmm.
still recovering from it. And I just thought to myself, I think he's going to be fine. I didn't necessarily think that he would. I mean, he had a very like life or death match against Alcaraz. Could have gone either way, which was obviously incredible for him to, I guess, stay with Alcaraz given how well he was playing. And obviously, we'll touch upon Alcaraz later. But to then win Rome the way he did was pretty comprehensive. And then it was a question of, well, okay, how was he going to be going into Roland Garros? And the question was, well, probably in the best possible position, beating someone who, of course, he faced at the final of Roland Garros last year, and beat him so comprehensively that you almost felt like, oh, hold on, this is a bit of a statement made, especially the bagel in the first set as well. Was pretty surprising, I guess, because Tsitsipas has been one of the best clay quarters in the last 12 months, to be fair, given his results. But yeah, I mean, was it a missed opportunity for Tsitsipas, do you think, that Rome final as well, Amy? Because he's had quite a good clay court swing. I mean, won Monte Carlo, and then I think Alcaraz has been his biggest issue. He just doesn't seem to be able to play particularly well against him. It's not a good matchup for him of losing comprehensively in Barcelona to him, and just hasn't really had the rub of the green. Of course, losing to Zverev as well. When I guess on the quicker clay in Madrid, it's not a massive surprise. But against Djokovic, I was expecting him to do a little bit more, and I thought he'd lose, but I thought he'd lose maybe 3 sets and it'd be a bit tighter. But I mean, Djokovic just seemed to be able to access the backhand so easily, and then it was just a question of breaking down Tsitsipas and out-serving the Greek as well, which is, I know Djokovic's serve is now an incredible weapon, but it's pretty surprising as well how comprehensively he was out-served as well. Was that a big surprise to you? And are there question marks around how far he can go, or is it a question of why you made the final of Rome? It's not a massive issue losing it.
I thought that the Tsitsipas match was kind of a tale of two matches within the match. The first set was an outlier. I think Tsitsipas came out with tight and with maybe a little bit of scar tissue from last year's Roland Garros final. So the look on his face, he just looked shell-shocked. His strokes were not confident. He was making a lot of errors, particularly on the backhand side. And the backhand has actually held up really well throughout the whole clay season. So there were a couple of moments in the first couple of games where a ball bounced off the line and then it hit like a pothole in the clay, and he was just like, he did not adjust well. He was just like, this isn't my day kind of deal. Then he played well. He played better in the second set, but he had a chance to serve for the set and he couldn't do it. So I think he's still working through Djokovic, and he's one of those. Djokovic for him is one of those opponents where he may not be ready to beat him yet, mentally or strategically. He just probably hasn't figured out. That day will come because he's a lot younger than Novak, but right now I don't think Tsitsipas is ready to beat him. Now, I know for a fact that the Tsitsipas team uses strategy and data. I don't know how integrated that is into Steph's game plan. But I know that they're looking at strategies and looking at how to serve to Novak, how to return, that kind of thing. I just know it didn't surprise me. He won 6 games. If you had told me that the score was going to be 6-3, 6-3, I wouldn't have been surprised. It just so happened that all 6 games came in one set.
That's true. That's a very good way of looking at it, I guess. In that, if it was 6-3, 6-3, would we have been surprised? And I guess the answer is no. Yeah, it's interesting about the backhand. You said that it's held up quite well, and I think it has generally. And I guess it also does help that the 1+ shot is 91% of the time beforehand as well, which is pretty incredible. He doesn't really need to hit many backhands. I just feel like against Djokovic, he had to hit so many more because, I mean, Djokovic has got probably the best two-handed backhand on tour, if not the best backhand on tour, and the depth and like the way that he's able to go cross court and find angles on it is just ridiculous. So I think Tsitsipas, even someone like him who's so good at being able to run around the backhand and his footwork is incredible, he was struggling at times even to get around it. And obviously I think he didn't adjust maybe as well in the first set, but the second set was really competitive, and 5-2 up, I think he'll be really disappointed that he didn't close it out. I mean, 5-2 is almost like we talk about, obviously, Nadal's done it a few times, but Djokovic does it a lot as well, coming back from 5-2 down in the set. You don't expect it, but mentally he's just so strong. And I think that's something that Tsitsipas obviously is. It's more of not just a skill-based competition when it comes to facing Novak, and I guess even someone like Nadal as well. But I feel like with Djokovic especially, it is really that mental aspect. And if you can, I was going to say if you can beat him mentally, but it's almost impossible at times to beat him mentally because he's so mentally tough. That is really, I guess, one of the things that makes him stand apart from the rest, which is great to see. What do you think of his chances, Amy, though, for Tsitsipas? I mean, Djokovic is going to be there. I mean, I don't know what you think, and I'll ask you a bit later about who your favorite is. But I mean, will Tsitsipas be happy, do you think, with the clay court swing and preparation going into Roland Garros? Because considering he made the final last year, I'm assuming his goal is going to be something similar.
Zooming out, he'll be happy with the whole season, but he's got a bad taste in his mouth from that last match. He seems like a guy though who can, kind of rally himself, do some yoga or something like that, and just kind of take it all in stride. I expect a deep run from him because he is one of the elite clay court players right now. So maybe, a quarterfinal or a semifinal, depending on where he is in the draw, especially if Carlos Alcaraz is in his half or not. Sure, he's one of the best. And he's also, Steph is very fit. And because of his deep runs in all these tournaments in the clay court season, as long as he's not injured, and he doesn't appear to be, he's well positioned for a good run at Roland Garros.
Yeah, no, agreed. I think as long as he doesn't get Carlos Alcaraz in his quarter, I think he's probably making the semi-finals most likely. But yeah, I agree. I think obviously he won Monte Carlo, which is a really good win. He's made a final of Rome, made a semi-final in Madrid, lost to the reigning champion in Zverev, and Zverev obviously serves and loves playing on the quicker clay, and then lost to Alcaraz in Barcelona. So I don't think that's a bad clay court season whatsoever. And then we go on to, of course, my a player that I've got a lot of vested interest in Rafael Nadal, who he obviously had that issue with the foot, and I have to actually give you credit because one of my subscribers actually said, Amy Lundy, the tennis analyst, he said, actually, to quote him directly, he said, Amy Lundy, who's an amazing tennis journalist and reporter, he said that Nadal was limping more than usual after the Alcaraz loss, and so he wasn't surprised that he then had the issues in Rome. And I initially, after the loss to Alcaraz, thought, okay, well, he limps normally. If he's going to play Rome, he surely knows what he's doing. It'll be okay. And then obviously, he didn't really turn out to be that way. I mean, you seem to have a little bit more of the inside track than me as well. And what do you think about, well, what his chances do you think of playing? I guess is the first question. Is there a doubt that he'll play it?
Yeah, there's a doubt, but because of the emergence of Alcaraz, Rafa probably knows that he may only have one, two, three more cracks at this. So to blow off Roland Garros, that would be. It's not like saying that you're going to skip the Wimbledon or the U.S. Open for him. So someone sent me a. First of all, there's two little tidbits that are pretty good. Someone sent me an article in Marca, I think it's called. It's a Spanish language outlet, and it talks about how one year Nadal played Roland Garros with essentially a frozen foot because they numbed the foot, and he was able to get through the tournament. Sorry, I forget what year it was. Without pain, and he won. He won the tournament that year. So because Rafa has already said that he's bringing his doctor with him, I guess they could freeze the foot again with whatever it is. I can't imagine not being able to feel a foot and still play, but I'm just a mere mortal. So there's hope. There's hope. And then the other thing was a piece of video that emerged yesterday that was shot on a cell phone, and you could just see Rafa in the way background at his academy practicing, crushing balls. Now, the person who was hitting with him was hitting right at Rafa. He was not being moved a step in either direction, but he was doing all of his footwork in place, and he was doing his grunting, and he was absolutely smacking the ball. So he looks like a guy who's in preparation to play a tournament.
Yeah. It's so interesting, isn't it? Because there's all these like massive doubts, and my feeling is that he'll play it, but it's just whether he's going to go into it potentially half cooked. Considering, I know he made the semi-finals of Madrid, right? No, yeah, no, quarterfinals of Madrid, lost to Alcaraz, and then obviously last week didn't really go his way against Shapovalov because of then the foot as well. So he hasn't played a lot of clay court tournaments because of the rib injury initially. Now, of course, he had this foot injury, so he'll be going into it really cold. I mean, realistically, I
So
would suggest.
I did a piece on this, and I always talk about this. This was like it had to have been like 5 years ago now. Looking at Rafa's clay court runs since he first broke into the professional tour, because there have been years where he's had injuries and ailments and has barely been able to play any
Yeah.
tournaments. And the analysis of each year, and it goes, 20 some odd years, it really, the clay court run up really does not matter. It has
Mm,
almost zero impact. He still won Roland Garros in those years that he was only able to play Barcelona and he didn't do very well or whatever. There were years when he ran the table. He won every clay court tournament that he entered and then went on to win Roland Garros. And there were years that he barely played and then went on to win Roland Garros. So that actually has very little impact.
mm. Actually, I remember you mentioning this. It's really interesting, isn't it? Because you, with any other player, I guess, in any other tournament, you kind of think, oh, well, they need some sort of practice going into it. But I guess if you won a tournament 13 times, you go into it with some sort of confidence, and the adrenaline kicks in when the crowd's behind you as well. So,
Mhm.
I mean, he's such a natural clay courter. I guess it makes a lot of sense. But do you think, given, I guess, with the format Djokovic is going into it, and then obviously we'll talk about Alcaraz and even Tsitsipas and others. Do you think he still warrants being the favorite?
Rafa?
Yeah,
No, no, and he's probably happy about that. Um,
underdog
yeah,
status.
yeah. I actually think he's maybe the third favorite officially. And I don't bet, I'm not into gambling, but I do look at the odds just because I'm curious and
Mm,
it's fun. And I'm wondering, like, these people are professionals and they're odds makers, and their job is to like look at everything. So it's fun to just see, or interesting to see what people have said and how the betting markets are going. And the last I checked, which was late last night, Djokovic and Alcaraz were tied,
mm,
dead even for the co-favorite, and Nadal was third, and Tsitsipas was fourth.
mm. Yeah, that's, to be fair, that's probably how I imagined it would go. To be fair, at the moment, which is interesting, but no, I mean, it makes a lot of sense. I think as as an Nadal fan or Nadal fans in general, and just tennis fans in general, will be interested to see how he gets on. I think the draw will have a massive impact as well, because I feel like if he gets a favorable draw, or for example, say he plays a match or two and he gets it done in straight sets and they're quite quick, and he manages to have big rests in between, and then for example, maybe some of the seeds fall and it kind of gets, it kind of falls into place. It happened to some degree at the Australian Open, obviously. Like, for example, he was going to play Kokkinakis, I remember early on. He was in really good form. He lost early, and then some other players obviously lost
Yeah,
early as well. So like he played Manarino, but I think he was supposed to play someone else.
yeah.
And it just kind of fell into place a little bit where it was a slightly more favorable run. And I feel like if that happens in the first week, then he might go into the second week and he'll feel a bit kind of good about himself. But if he ends up having a tough draw, and then the seeds are all there, and then he's going to end up having some longer sets because the serve, like from what I've seen anyway on the clay, has been kind of up and down a little bit. Hasn't really been as good as it was at the start of the year. Um, I just feel like, and then physically as well, the longer he plays, the more he's going to worry about the foot. So I just feel like that has a massive impact on it. I don't know what you think.
You know, I learned my lesson about this this year, at the start of this year, because remember, Rafa was coming off of injury and had barely played going into the Australian Open. He played one tournament, but he only played two or three matches to get that title. Three, I guess. And the matches were short, and everyone was like poking fun at him. Yay, Rafa won a 250, like, oh, big deal. Um, and then he goes in and wins Australia. Because he is older and has all that experience, he really doesn't need. And if he's playing at all, that means that he's primed for a good run. So I'm not worried about that.
Okay.
But you know, the draw, you brought up the draw. Boy, that's interesting this year because Medvedev is apparently going to play.
Yeah, it looks like he's playing Geneva, I think, as we speak at the moment. Yeah.
So he'll be the 2 seed. And with Alcaraz in there, you know, Alcaraz should really be the 1 or the 2, but he's not. And then, you know, Rafa being normally Rafa would be a 1 or a 2 on clay, but he's not. So how it all shakes out, you know, you could potentially see Novak and Rafa play in a quarterfinal. How it all shakes out will be very interesting. I'll be on the edge of my seat when that one comes out.
Yeah, it's gonna be very intriguing. I think, yeah, I think if he's gonna win it, he's gonna. I mean, no doubt he's gonna have to beat one of a Djokovic, at least one of an Alcaraz and a Djokovic, and then Tsitsipas and Zverev and whoever else. So I think it is what it is. He's gonna have to do it. So, but you said he's gonna be fine, Amy. So I believe you. As a Rafa fan, I have
If
no
he's
worries
there,
whatsoever.
if he shows up, he'll be okay. And you know,
Yeah,
not that I am a doctor, but there is something called cortisone, and that will
yeah,
take the pain right away. Now, you can only professional athletes can only do like 1 or 2 of those really because it starts to degrade the tissue
yeah,
and you know your career's over. But I remember when I hurt my foot, actually, I tore some ligaments in my foot, and I went to an orthopedic surgeon who he's like doctor to the New York Knicks. This is how seriously I take my tennis. Like, I've got to play tennis. I've got to go to the best of the best. So this was several years ago when I tore ligaments in my foot, and I'm like, can we hurry up and get me healed? Because I got to get back out on the tennis court. And he said, Amy, if you were about to play the US Open and you were at the end of your career, I would give you a cortisone shot and say, get out there. But you're an amateur player who wants to play for the next 40 years.
yeah,
So you're just going to have to wait and let it heal. Well, actually, now we are in that situation where Nadal is close to the end of his
yeah.
career.
True.
He could get a cortisone shot. That may be an ace in the hole. But according to this article in this Marca, this Spanish
Mm.
newspaper website, he has taken something before that is like a pain blocker that and got him through the tournament. So he may do that again.
Yeah, the frozen foot sounds really interesting. I'm just like
You
I'm
can,
imagining playing without having feeling on my feet, which is what I'm assuming is how it feels after.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
weird, like numbing feeling. But
How do
anyway,
you slide on that? I mean, that sounds dangerous, but
muscle memory. I don't know.
yeah,
he's
it's
played
true.
he's played so many matches on clay. He just
Yeah.
knows what to do. Um, I guess someone we have to talk about is Carlos Alcaraz. I mean, the hype has been around him for a little bit of time, and I guess the hype's real because he's come through and he's just been blitzing people left, right, and center just for fun. I guess won Barcelona, Madrid, obviously won Miami before that. Monte Carlo lost, early on to Corda, but I think himself and Rude both lost early on in that. That was because they'd made the final in Miami, so
Hmm.
I think there was a little bit of hangover there,
Hmm.
and obviously missed Rome last week. So my first question is, of course, he's tied favorite. Do you agree, Amy? And also, do you think, of course, he missed Rome to rest, which I think is obviously a logical choice given that he's played a lot of tennis. But a lot of people say that Rome plays the most similar to Roland Garros. Do you think that's a missed opportunity for him as well, though?
I actually said that I made this bold statement on my podcast that I didn't think that Alcaraz should play Rome. And then I said, but he'll never skip it. This guy's 18 years old. Everybody's pushing, 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 pushing. Smartly, he did skip it. So good for him. Because, I mean, human beings are human beings and everybody needs rest. And after all these deep runs and tournaments, like, the kid needed rest. So I thought that was a wise choice, but this is going to surprise you. I don't he's not my favorite to win Roland Garros. And the reason is I looked back at his very, very short career, and he really has not played that many best of 5 matches. And he has played Roland Garros before, but this is a different beast, the level that he's going in at and the pressure and the hype around him. I think would even, depending on the draw, predict him to go to the finals. I think maybe one more year before he really is my favorite to win this one. That's just me, just my opinion.
No, I agree. I agree, Amy. I think it's very easy to get caught up in the hype around him because he's played a lot of amazing tennis. Of course, he beat Rafa and Novak back-to-back days. I mean, that was incredible win, of course, in Madrid, and I get that. And then, of course, Zverev as well, reigning champion. It was an incredible feat. But I think, as you rightfully say, he hasn't played a lot of best of 5 matches. And yes, he's played a couple. He played one against Tsitsipas, a really tight one, won that. Then he played one against Berrettini, recently and lost that. So in a Grand Slam. So I just think, he is a phenomenal player. But then beating Novak or Rafa in a best of 3 is very different to beating in a best of 5. And that's where they really thrive more than anywhere, right? This is where their level is going to be at the highest, you would assume. So if he then beats one of them, for example, in a quarter or semi, then you're thinking, okay, right, here we go, right? This is the real deal. And I think he is the real deal, but it's just a question of whether he's going to do it now or he's going to do it later. And I feel like maybe, as you said, it's a little bit early. But in saying that, then it almost means by default we're saying Djokovic is a huge favourite. And maybe that is the case. But it sounds crazy to say when not only a couple of weeks ago in Belgrade, he was struggling. He lost the first set in every single match, which, okay, fine, that has happened a lot with Novak recently. And then he just seems to kind of come through easily in the end. And then obviously lost the final to Rublev. And then all it takes is a couple of tournaments and we're like, yeah, he's back. And I guess that is because of his experience, because of how experienced he is on the clay, how experienced he is in his career. He's won so many slams. People just expect him to win. And I guess he expects himself to win too. So I get that. But it's an interesting one because, as you say, the bookmakers have Alcaraz tied, which I think is a really bold choice. But I feel like his form going into it, he's probably the most informed player on tour at the moment, and on the men's side, right? I'm assuming.
Between him and Novak, yeah.
So we'll see. I do think it was the right decision to miss Rome, but I also do think Rome does play the most similar to Roland Garros, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
So that I don't know whether that also has some sort of would it have helped him a little bit? Maybe, but I guess if depending on the draw, if he doesn't have a terrible draw, then it might not matter too much. But he doesn't have the experience that Novak and Rafa have, right? Where he can fall back on it. So we'll see. Like Madrid is so plays so differently to Roland Garros is so much quicker. So I guess we'll see how he plays in the big boy tournament, which is Roland Garros. Then the rest of them, is there anyone that you think is a dark horse going into? I mean, Zverev obviously has been a little bit up and down. Rublev as well. Casper Ruud has had a really poor start to the season, but then recently has started to at least gain some form on the clay, given that it's supposed to be his best surface. What have you thought of the rest of the field? Is there anyone that can potentially threaten those guys that we talked about? Those 4, I guess, in Novak and Rafa and Carlos Alcaraz, and I guess Tsitsipas. Those are really the 4, I guess, that people are looking at. They're thinking it's going to be somewhere between those 4. Could it come from somewhere else?
There's one other player that really impressed me recently, and that's Felix Auger-Aliassime and the way he played Novak. He gave Novak the hardest time in any of the 5 matches.
Yeah, agreed.
He's just so close. I mean, that kid is just so close to breaking through, and he's got Tony Nadal in his camp. So I guess he would be my little dark horse or outlier. But I need to see the draw first. Like, who has Alcaraz in his quarter? Who has Novak in his quarter? Who's got Rafa? And then I kind of game it out in my head. Not that I'm always right about these things.
Yeah. No, you know what? That's a really, really good choice as well, because I think it's funny, when we started the clay court season, everyone was talking about how poor his form is on clay. And if I'm not mistaken, I keep on saying this, I'm pretty sure it's correct. I'm pretty sure he hasn't won a match at Roland Garros. Now, that might be a complete bold-faced lie, so someone correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think he has. And going into this year, I mean, he's still very young. Was he 21? So he hasn't played many tournaments, but Still, obviously, it's still pretty shocking considering that he's made semi-finals of Grand Slams, etc. And you'd expect, given how I guess how comprehensively he's able to dictate with the forehand at times, that he would be able to have better success on the clay. But I was really impressed with the way he served against Novak. I mean, I just couldn't believe it. I mean, both of them were serving really well, but on a surface that is supposed to be a slow clay court. I mean, Felix was serving, I think he served 11 aces over 2 sets against the best returner ever. And a bunch of those, that's not including unreturnables. I just thought he was hitting his spots incredibly well. And then the 1+ plays were really good as well, making them into a lot of forehands, really aggressive. And then even in some points, he was managing to stick with Novak and physically actually match him, which was just incredible. And I just thought, I don't understand why I'm watching. It was one that, even though it was a straight set victory, it was one of the best matches I watched all year, and I did commentary for it, and I was just astounded by the level. I just thought it was unbelievable tennis. So, yeah, thank you for bringing that up. I thought it was a really, really good match. I'm hoping he can take the next step with Tony Nadal in his corner as well. But, yeah, he's an interesting one to watch out for sure.
Yes, he is entering his prime in terms of fitness, athleticism, speed, and agility. And the first thing after I look at the draw, do you know the first thing that I'm going to look at to figure out who I like?
No, I don't know. Cam Norrie.
No, what factor would I look at? And keep in mind that I had the honor and privilege of actually for 1 hour hitting at Roland Garros. So
Oh,
I got
wow.
a real good, this was a few years ago.
Oh, are you gonna look at the reports on the surface? Are you
The weather.
the
The weather, because this surface in Paris goes with the weather. If it is hot and dry, not overly humid, the surface speeds up. If it is hot and humid, advantage servers. If it is wet and cloudy and cool, disadvantage servers. So that is literally, and actually I'm going to Paris. I'm leaving Sunday. So I'm going to start becoming obsessed with the forecast.
Oh, you're going. Well, wow, that's going to be amazing. Are you going to be doing some reporting there?
Yeah, I've got a couple of freelance assignments, and we'll do our podcast and that kind of thing.
Oh, amazing. Hopefully you can hit there as well.
Well, I've just texted a friend. They've tightened up. Like that was like once in a lifetime. I kind of, the
Would be
stars
amazing.
aligned, and it was kind of a media opportunity, but I wasn't really supposed to be out there. I was supposed to be on the practice courts, but the players were not allowed out. It was early in the morning, but then the net wasn't up at the practice court, so we just walked over to court 5 and said to the groundsman, "Can we just hit here?" And the guy was like, "Yeah, sure, come on." So, and then as I was wrapping up, I looked to my left, and Grigor Dimitrov was warming up for his match. And I was like, what? So, but the great thing about being able to do that was understanding the surface. And we here in the United States, we don't have a lot of red clay. We have a lot of green clay. So
Blue
I
clay as well, isn't it?
really wanted to understand the differences and understand how the surface works. And for me, hitting on that one court that was being used in the tournament, the court was a lot firmer than I realized. And it almost like a brick with some brick dust sprinkled on it, but it was very firm. So, yeah, I learned a lot. I learned a lot about how the court changes with conditions.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? Because a lot of people, I guess you're listening. I guess most people listening will know this, but the clay court's obviously not made out of clay. It's broken up brick, isn't it? Like stone, which is so interesting. But that's really interesting. You said it's a lot firmer. So I think I played. I play on clay courts at my local club, but it's artificial clay, so it's not the same. It plays almost exactly the same, but it's obviously slightly different. But I went to Spain and I played on a clay court there, like a natural clay court. And yeah, as you said, like obviously probably played really different to Roland Garros one, but in terms of I guess how solid the surface is, it is really like rock solid especially when it's baked, which it was. It was baked under the sun for a few days. which is really interesting because you expect it to be kind of more soft and you can just slide around and it's really
Yeah.
amazing and slick.
That's how the green clay is here. It's
Okay.
super soft, and I just played at my friend's court this morning. It's like, and it's because it just opened for the season,
Mm,
and it hasn't baked too much, and
yeah.
it's been rainy here. I mean, it's almost like a grass court. The ball just doesn't come up, and it's like silk. It's so soft. It's not really fun, but the
Yeah.
courts at Roland Garros are nothing like that. They're firm, and they do eat topspin. Like if
There's
you
pops.
spin the
Yeah.
ball, it just spins
Yeah.
right up in your face. I was like massively out of breath after the first few minutes because of the work it takes to
Yeah.
top the ball, and to top a ball that is spinning at you. Well, you got to top it to get it to go the
Yeah.
other way. It's like a heavy lift almost.
Yeah.
But I learned a lot doing that, and I like, of course, even more admiration for somebody like Nadal, because you got to be strong as an ox to play a best of 5 match there.
No, I agree. It's so physical, isn't it? It's just so conducive to topspin, which is why I guess the guys that we've talked about have that in their arsenal. They've got huge RPMs on their forehand and backhands. The amount of spin they're able to exert is just incredible. So, looking forward to that. And then I guess, is there anything on the men's side before we go on to the women's side?
No, I think that about covers it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we know who the favorites are, and this is going to be a good one. That's why I made the decision to get on a plane and go there, because I
Yeah.
know, like, this is Rafa's only got a few more left,
Yeah.
so this is going to be a good one.
No, I agree. I agree. Yeah, I would if I could. I would love to as well. One day maybe. Rafa probably won't be playing them though. He probably won't be playing, but maybe who knows?
Who knows?
Actually, before we move on to the women's, who's your predicted winner? Obviously, the draws
Well,
are out, so it's tough.
yeah,
But as in,
yeah, exactly. I never pick against Nadal, never. But I don't pick against Novak either. Let's just suffice it to say I'm not picking Alcaraz. So
okay,
you can do the math.
okay, no, that's fair. That's fair. And then on the women's side, I mean, we can start off with, I think, the glaringly obvious player in Iga Swiatek, who's won 28 straight wins for her, 5 straight tournaments, 3 of them hard courts, 2 on clay, unbeaten in WTA Masters 1000 tournaments. I mean, chuck in also an ATP, WTA, sorry, even 500 as well. And she's just been playing some incredible tennis. Won Rome without dropping a set. Beat Ons Jabeur, who just won Madrid, who was looking great form. Beat her in straight sets as well. That was a really entertaining match. I felt like the 6-2, 6-2 scoreline wasn't quite reflective of maybe the level at times. I thought some of the points were really close, but I mean, as has been the case for the last few months, Swiatek just way too strong. How impressive have you been with her? And
Oh
she
yeah.
surely is a huge favorite. I mean, it's so tough to know who else is going. I mean, we'll talk about some of the other players on the tour as well, but I mean, she just seems to be a huge favorite going into it.
Yeah, and she's won Roland Garros, and the defending champion, Krejcikova, is injured, has been injured, and is in question whether she's even going to be able to play. Ash Barty retired, who's also won Roland Garros. It's like, I am unbelievably annoyed with Ash Barty right now, because can you imagine if Ash were still playing and Swiatek is playing the way she is, we would finally have a battle of titans and then an emerging rivalry in women's tennis,
Yeah.
instead of anyone could win parity, that whole thing, which I
The
um
rivalry is so funny as well because I said in one of my most recent videos, I said Ash Barty needs to come out of retirement for the French Open, and then basically we might have someone who can challenge because. But like you make such a good point. Like Swiatek, there's this massive black hole when Barty retired, and Swiatek just said, "You guys want to share it with me? No, I'm gonna have all the cake to myself, basically." And she stepped up her game. But fair play to, I mean, she's revolutionized. I think again the forehand is just like has come on leaps and bounds. I think, and this I feel like something clicked when she lost to Danielle Collins in the Australian Open semi-final, and she realized she needs to be a bit more offensive in the way that she plays, and maybe just have better looks on the forehand. And I feel like she's now playing a bit more proactively, and like she's being a bit more kind of forced on the 1+ play. She's not just expecting, her opponents to make mistakes and be a counterpuncher. She has different layers to her game. I feel that's what's been really impressive for me about how she's kind of evolved. And as you say, like if Ash Barty was, it would be incredible, but fortunately, you won't get that.
Yeah, it's so funny because Barty is, she said she's a homebody. She doesn't want to leave Australia and blah, blah, blah. And then she goes out and plays some golf tournaments. And, she's so cool, Ash Barty. She can do anything. She can play any sport, right? Well, then I read that Ash Barty has entered some pro-am golf tournament in New Jersey, which is, half an hour from where I live. And I believe it may be in June. I could be totally wrong on this. And I'm like, well, I could go out to that tournament. It's like one of these celebrity golf tournaments. And I could give Ash a piece of my mind.
Why aren't you playing? If you come to the US, you come to the
Yeah,
US Open.
right.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Because I'm a journalist. I'm not really supposed to be a fan, but I was a fan of Barty's game, and her tennis IQ is just through the roof. And it would have been so interesting to see Ash in her prime with that tennis IQ playing Iga with her forehand and her movement. Iga has cracked the code on the forehand.
Yeah.
Like I was asking somebody, like, what is the balance on her racket right now? Because her racket head speed it's like you see on the ATP tour. It's amazing. And her fitness, the way she anticipates, the way she moves, she is entering her peak and her prime. So this is a good thing. This is a good thing. And if Swiatek can establish herself as a multiple Grand Slam winner and contender, then we can move into we can find her foil, whether it be Osaka or Ons Jabeur or something. We can find somebody who will then raise her level. But we need one before we can have the good battle of the titans or the good rivalries. And so if Iga is stepping up saying, I'm going to be elite, well, then that's good for women's tennis. It's like finally.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like 100%. I mean, I think if she's up to a game, and I feel like that means that the others now have to start upping the game as well. Like Ons Jabeur winning, and obviously she won in Madrid because Iga wasn't there as well. But then she made the final, and I think she now knows, okay, well, this is the kind of level that I'm going to have to beat if I want to win Roland Garros, for example. I mean, Ons Jabeur, I absolutely love her, and I know you were saying about not saying your favorite players, but I'll happily say, I mean, she's one of my favorite on the WTA tour. She's just so exciting to watch. She, I think for me, has turned a corner as well. Of course, she's now, I think, highest rank of number 6 in the world, which is her, personal best, I guess, in terms of ranking, which is great. But not just that, I think the fact that she managed to win a Masters final, which she struggled with, of course, winning finals. She got over that hurdle. I think it's a massive, massive mental win for her. Being, I think, what is it, the first African woman to do it as well. So a bit of history there. I mean, how impressive has she been on the clay for you in terms of her form, and is she a real threat going into Roland Garros, do you think?
I think she's emerged as a player who clay right now, at least, is her best surface. So the more she plays, the more we're getting her profile. And I think the reason is, I mean, she's a very interesting player. She's hard to peg and pin, but the reason is that she has just that little bit of extra time to do her magic or to load or to get to the ball. She's interesting. Like, she can hit a heavy topspin forehand, or she can flatten it out, and it can be flat as a pancake. Her backhand is very flat.
Yeah.
She drops shots a ton, which is perfect for clay.
Yeah.
And she's got good touch. She can lob. She's got a good serve. I think one of the most, for all her little tricks and trends and stuff, I think one of the most impressive, underrated things about her is just simply her cross court forehand, because she can be pinned super deep in that corner
Mm.
and she can give it just as good as she got it. And you think that she's going to be on defense, and she hits it cross court forehand, heavy, heavy and deep, right back to the other corner. So she's got that. Playing Swiatek, she's now seen like, okay, this is my levels moved up. I've got a lot of great wins on clay, but this is I beat Halep, but this is what I'm going to have to do to beat this person. And as you mentioned, she's learned to fight the demons in terms of her nerves. I mean, this is something that, unless you watch a lot of women's tennis, you may not know this, but she used to throw up a lot when on the
Mm.
court. Yeah. Like, you wouldn't see it necessarily because the cameras would go to commercial. But if you Google it, it's actually talked about
Oh,
as,
wow.
yeah, as recently as I think 2019, 2020, when things got really close in the match,
They
like
stress
third
out.
set. Yeah, she would go over to the side and throw up. And I haven't seen her do that recently.
Yeah.
So I think, that winning Madrid, it was a huge mental hurdle for her. And I think she's a work in progress on her mental game, but she's making great strides.
Yeah, agreed. Drop shotting on the second serve return is one of my personal That's hilarious. It barely ever works, but occasionally when she does it, she has the
I
type of
like
game
I
that I
like her
feel like
jump backhand. Have you seen her jump? Okay,
yeah,
so
the
she
jump
hits.
backhand down the line as well. Amazing. I love it.
Yeah, she looks like any number of the ATP two-handers that do that jump
Yeah.
backhand. But then I saw, I think it was against Halep, she did, trying to disguise a drop shot, she did a jump backhand drop shot where she jumped, and then while she's in the air, she just drops it.
Oh, love it. Absolutely love it. It's just, yeah. She's the type of player that any club player would hate to face because of the amount of drop shots and like the disguise and stuff. And then she can just turn it on and just hit winners. And it's just a nightmare. Like, I just watch her and I just think, like, visualize, like, I would never want to play her, like, as in her style, because it'll be so frustrating. And the thing is, it's funny because she's the most likable player on tour from what I've seen.
Yeah.
Everyone loves her. Like, when they finish the matches, she has massive hugs and everyone's like, Ons Jabeur, absolutely love her. But her game is really frustrating to play against, I can imagine. But then they can't say mad at her for long because she comes to the net and gives them a hug and stuff. It's hilarious.
Oh,
Love it.
yeah. Yeah, I
Absolutely
mean,
love it.
like Halep was so mad to lose to
Yeah.
her, and then they come to the net, and On said something to her, and Halep, she had like a scowl on her face, and then she just starts cracking up and gives
Yeah,
Ons a hug. I mean,
exactly.
I have met probably a dozen people who, either I have a friend that lives in Tunisia or friends in Europe, and they all know Ons Jabeur. It's like
Yeah.
everybody knows her. They're a friend. She's one of those people that if you've ever met her, she's your friend.
Yeah.
So so she's awesome, and the WTA must be just like worshiping at the temple of Ons Jabeur, because she's everything that women's tennis needs right now.
Yeah.
So hopefully she'll do very well at Roland Garros and emerge as a foil or a rival for Swiatek.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, she's larger than life. I need to go actually, Amy, as well. So I guess we can wrap up with just in terms of the other players on the women's side. There's a few obviously that are kind of be up and down. I know obviously Andrescu's made a little bit of a comeback, which is great. And then we had another Teen US Open champion, Raducanu, get injured, so we're kind of unsure what's going on there. But Dos and Sicario have been on kind of maybe for me anyway disappointing form recently. And Sabalenka's kind of made a little bit of a comeback, made a final and a semi-final, and Osaka. I feel like her trials on clay continue. But in terms of not just those players, but any other players that you think of, are there any dark horses that you see going into Roland Garros? We talked about Swiatek and obviously Jabeur being, I guess, on top of Swiatek, the most informed player. But is there anyone else that people should be looking out for?
Well, just before I came on here, I checked Twitter, and there was something on the Roland Garros website that said Amanda Anisimova is a dark horse. I was like, wow, like that's how far we've come, because everybody knows that she plays well on clay. She's had a good
Yeah.
run at Roland Garros, and she's a dark horse now. I guess everybody's a dark horse if you're not Iga, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, she plays well. I actually think Danielle Collins, who's not made for clay at all, but
Yeah.
when I saw her in Rome, I was really impressed just because she's so dogged. So
Mm.
those two Americans might be a bit of a dark horse for me.
Yeah. No, I agree. And Nisimova's it's been great to see her find some form. So hopefully she does well. And then there was obviously that match between Nisimova and Sabalenka. I feel like Sabalenka, Nisimova, and Collins, whenever they play each other, it's like I think you put a tweet out saying it's like the rally shot length is -1,
Yeah,
which is just
right.
like, because they hit the ball so hard, and it's just like aces and return winners, and then there's unforced
Spraying.
errors, and it's spraying everywhere. It's just like it's carnage, but it's exciting to watch. So I'm not complaining.
If it's
I'm not
hot
complaining.
and humid in Paris, then I might favor Sabalenka to make the quarterfinals or something like that.
Mm,
If the serves, like I've been in Paris where they're dropping heat just because of the conditions,
yeah.
but if it's at all humid and cool, no.
Yeah.
No.
No, agreed. Swiatek then is your predicted winner, I'm assuming.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
I'm gonna
Cool.
go out on a limb.
Yeah. Really left field choice, Amy. I can't believe you chose her. No, well, I know you need to go, Amy, as well. So thank you very much for your time, as always. Guys,
Thank
do
you.
check out Amy on Twitter and also on Tennis Connected. Some amazing articles on there. If you're watching or listening on YouTube, do remember to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Also, we're on podcast platforms, so do leave a rating or review. Also, do check out 3 Tennis Podcast, which Amy's a part of. Some amazing content on there, also on YouTube and podcast platforms as well. Amy, anything from you before we wrap up?
No, thank you just so much for having me on. It's always a good time talking with you.
No worries. Thanks so much, Amy, for being on. Yeah, it's amazing to have you on as always, and I'm sure we'll catch up. Enjoy Paris as well.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks.